Welcome to Blue Sky. My name is Richard Tannery, and I started this program to celebrate innovators, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders.
And kind of like wrapped up and was going over it with my guests and going like, hey, like this is what'll happen next, and I'll send you this link so you can kind of review. Where's the link? Go, oh crap, I never hit record.
Good dry run, good rehearsal.
Yeah.
Well, we're recording now, so I think we're good
right
to go.
on.
But for those just joining, we just had a great 3.5-hour conversation between Richard and Graham, and now we're actually going to record the thing.
Yeah. Well, you asked like where did I get started? Well, yeah, my name is Graham DeNoyer. I'm a retired Army Chief Warrant Officer 3. I'm relentlessly people focused, and I'm an extreme but healthy skeptic, I'd say. And I got there because through 20 years and across like, I think 8 states and 5 different countries, I served as basically an organizational consultant within the military as a warrant officer. I got really, really good at finding signals of change and identifying triggers of that change is coming, and then aligning teams of people around command teams or around executives. But I found that I guess like the key to building a really great organization and the mission of great leaders is to create an environment where innovation happens. And I also found that environment exists between people. It doesn't exist around technologies. It doesn't exist around an organization's greater vision. It exists between you and I, and me and Tom, and Amber and Graham, and it exists between people. And so I became really, really passionate about anything an organization does has to start with the people. So now I'm now out. I'm retired. I'm serving the University of Alaska as an entrepreneur, strategist, and futurist, and I'm also the CEO of my wife and I's company, EENO Group, which is essentially more or less a holding company for our other ventures that we have going, companies that we've started, companies that we're selling, companies that we're partnered in, and other things that we want to build in the future. So that's who I am, I guess, in a nutshell.
What took you to the Army to begin with? Was that a dream as a child, or was it just happenstance as a path?
If I had to put it in just a couple words, I'd probably say they were hiring. Yeah, they were hiring. I have a pretty honest story about that. It's like I was working with my dad. My dad owned his own company, Kitchens Extraordinaire, and he remodeled kitchens and baths. And I kind of been around that my entire life. And leaving high school, went straight into working with him on that, and was being kind of I guess I was just being a fucking dumb teenager. And I was waking up late. I was making up excuses. I wasn't taking accountability. I wasn't having any type of ownership. I was just waiting for direction, and after doing that a number of times and seeing the looks of disappointment on my dad's face when I would show up late, it was just like, what am I going to do with him? He's my son. And the last time I was like, I'm joining the military. And my dad was like, holy crap, Really? Like, that's fantastic. And that look on my dad's face was what made me go, oh crap, I gotta go talk to a recruiter. And so, like, that's the really honest story of, like, man, I was just a screw up. And I told my dad a lie. I hadn't talked to a recruiter yet at all. And I was just, I'm going to join the military. And seeing that look of approval and pride on his face was like something that, you know, something that was mentionable and memorable. So
When was that? You're probably
that was
about my age, right? And was that the 90s?
no. That was 2004,
Okay, gotcha.
2003. Yeah.
2003. Then fast forward to retirement.
Mhm.
What was that transition path like for you?
It was a long time coming. I think I saw my transition was meant to happen probably around 15 years in. And I was, I was trying to balance this, like, what do I do right by the organization versus what do I do right by my family? I mean, I've already put 15 years into this career, and I wasn't really seeing any more opportunities for me to advance, for me to grow individually. And so about 15 years, I saw myself going, like, I think it's just time for me to get out. But I kept looking for other opportunities, and I just kept showing up. I just kept bringing the right attitude about trying to find something that felt purposeful. Because this is like 15 years. This is after my last deployment. Deployments to Afghanistan were slowing down. Iraq was not really, a mentionable thing. It's not something we were hearing about on the news anymore or anything. So I guess that's what I mean when I use that word purposeful, like belonging on a team who's doing a mission. You get ready, you go to do what you signed up to do. You go over there, you do it, and you come back home, you reset, retrain, and then you go again. And that was like the entirety of the first 15 years of my career. So not having that anymore was like kind of what left me feeling a little bit empty. But around the 15-year mark, I found this course called Lean Six Sigma. It's pretty well known, I think, and it's around process improvement and constantly making things better and looking for small things to change. Basically, doing like small projects inside of business problem sets. Fell really in love with that, and then it deals a lot with statistics, and I'm not a huge math guy, and so I really quickly fell out of love with that. I felt like the projects take too long. I want to try something and iterate and move now. I don't want to wait to collect a whole bunch of data to make a bunch of fancy charts and talk to some other people who are really smart at math. I've started realizing that problems are about people. And so I found human-centered design stuff. And design thinking, and I went down that, and that was probably the downfall of Graham getting out of the Army. Was like finding this innovation space.
I've fallen in love, so to speak, with veterans who are able to transition out and pursue the entrepreneurial path, because I know it, coming from the world's largest bureaucracy, which is based on structure and protocol, and then ejecting into such an ambiguous entrepreneurial path that does not have a script, a playbook. You don't have rank and file over you constantly telling you what to do and when to do it. It's a very special kind of personality that can go from that one space, the very black and white space, to the gray area and survive in that gray area. So I'm intrigued by people who are able to make that transition, and I really like to hear what the thought process was, why you took the leap. What the hell were you thinking, Graham?
Well, I was thinking that I no longer fit the mold. I like I said, I found a lot of the human-centered design thinking stuff that really resonated with me. Find a problem, plan a solution, try something small and go. And a lot of that led to this like upskilling and reskilling of me, Graham, as what I am was a maintenance technician. I was a maintenance warrant officer. And so, you know, there's a sprinkling of problems in there. We went to this new system called GTSS Army. The Marine Corps has GCSS Marine Corps. This is like a long story. I could bitch about this stupid system forever. But as we went to it, I went, oh, there's something here. All these other companies are using this system. They call it, it's SAP is the company who makes the software. So the software is SAP. And I found that all these other companies are using it. So I went, man, that's my transition. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go be a consultant. And so I went, I found a couple of really great programs that resulted in getting a certification and a license to be an SAP licensed consultant for systems integration. And I thought, and then I found Central Michigan University, who offers it as part of their master's program. It's like half of the master's program, their MBA. And so I went, well, if I'm already halfway there, I might as well just do an MBA. So I did the MBA. I got my graduate cert. I got my, became a certified licensed consultant through SAP. And then doing all that, I realized it was not what I wanted to do, which, you know, led me harder down this path of, yeah, I'm just definitely going to get out, but I'm not sure what I'm going to do. And now I have all this knowledge and experience doing maintenance, doing some with resource planning systems, doing some with leadership and organizational culture and innovation. But I feel like I'm really a generalist. And so that leads to this feeling of, I'm an imposter. How am I going to fit in the business world? That was really scary. So not knowing what I was going to go out and do became my transition model was, okay, I think now I was at 16 years and I for sure I'm getting out at 20. That's what I decided. I'm going to stay in, but I'm getting out at 20. The Army will get 20 years and 20 minutes out of me to walk to the parking lot, and that's it. So what I did was I realized, man, I'm really good at human-centered design. I'm really good at facilitation, design thinking. I'm really great at problem solution discovery and analysis. So let me build a business around that. So I built Collaborately. It was my first company while I was in. And we were doing that. We were doing consulting. We were doing a lot of human-centered first stuff. Really hard to sell in a place like Alaska where there's not, you know, it's not a big booming hub like Silicon Valley or Austin. So all the startups are really, really startups. They're, you know, really bootstrapped. They're, you know, really dealing with problems that are unique to Alaska and that. And so what I found was it's going to be really hard to run this company up here. So I leaned back with a partner of mine and we started Red Team This. And Red Team This does a lot of the same strategy work, helping companies figure out what their fit is to get into special operations problem sets, to get into the Department of Defense contracting arena. And super, super great team, awesome opportunities. And I guess that's the line that led me to doing that, was trying something new, figuring out it wasn't going to work, make some small changes. Don't just sketch it completely, throw it away and start anew, but figure out what didn't work and make the changes there, you know, just start making small changes.
Can you expand a little on design thinking and also futurism? Because you've exposed me to these terms recently, and I was relatively unaware.
Yeah.
I'd like to understand a little more.
So design thinking is this process of going through, looking at a problem, clearly defining it, and finding what the problem might be, ideating what some solutions might be, and then doing some small tests and iterating on that. So a conventional way of doing things might be to say, I want to start a cookie company. I make a really great recipe that I like, and I think other people will like it too. And I'm going to make 10,000 cookies, and I'm going to go out and try to sell them. And you may go out and you may do really great and move 1,000 cookies. And that's not really great, because you started with your idea and your problem and your solution, and you went out and tried to capture the masses, versus saying, I'm really passionate about making cookies. I'm super good at this. I like them. Let me start by making, 100 cookies and going out and doing some tests and finding what the population likes, and finding out, okay, only 50 people really liked them, and what they really liked was the chocolate chips, but some of them said they were a bit too salty. So I'm gonna go back to my recipe, and I'm gonna just take a little bit of salt out and go out and try again. And I try again and maybe find out, like, people do really like the chocolate chips, but there's too many and they're not crunchy enough. So I'm gonna take some chocolate chips out. I'm gonna throw in some oats and make them a little crunchier, and go out and try again. And you're really just iterating around what other people are giving you feedback on. I think that's like a short example of what design thinking is or could be. And then futurism is like, futurism is looking 10 years into the future. I think 10 years is a really great place to stop, because 10 years is enough time for enough things to change, but not so far out that that you just can't imagine the change, right? So futures thinking is like a technology company trying to anticipate what are the long-term ethics and consequences of their new product. Would Facebook be different 20 years ago if they could have anticipated all the social problems and the election issues and the data concerns that individuals are starting to have? Would they have shifted their model a bit if they could have seen that coming? So maybe it's a city government like coming up with new ways to face climate change. These are things that are going to happen 10 years from now. You can take some good guesses about it, but you can't be sure, because there's so many other things that are that are impacting and forcing change to happen. You can't be sure about it, but you can make some good guesses 10 years out. For entrepreneurs, this could be like inventing a new service that might change the world, but it kind of maybe helps with what people need in the future, that no one else has created to provide right now. That's really what futures thinking encompasses. Let's look out in the future. Let's see what signals are we seeing now that could be true, and what other triggers exist that could make that come true in 10 years.
And when you combine the two philosophies, it makes for an interesting approach, I believe. It's one that substantiates a mantra of mine, which is progress over process. You might have some process in there, but you've got to be focused on the progress. And it takes a very staunch and scrutinous change leader to be able to guide that process through all of the iterations.
Yeah, and change is fucking hard. Change is really, really hard. And change is hard because we have rules in place. And that is the status quo, right? And in organizations that are super, super bureaucratic, it's even harder because people believe in those rules, and they may not even understand why those rules exist. But that's the reason change is hard. And so those rules have really got to fight for their life. And that's where I really, like I say, like, I'm a really healthy skeptic. I look at everything with skepticism, because I want to make those rules fight for their life. And if a rule seems dumb, it might actually be fucking dumb, and we might need to change it. Or if it seems dumb, it might not be dumb because there may be other things influencing why that rule exists. But if we're not constantly challenging those rules, then we're not constantly inspecting them and validating that there are other things pressing down on that force that rule to exist. Change is hard.
Yeah. So your current offerings out there, I think you have a couple of different paths. One is the consultancy. One is, and we'll get into it, your work with the University of Alaska. But in terms of where we met in the defense innovation space, virtually first, but then in person. Got a chance to sit down after one of the Fed Supernova events here at Capitol Factory and toss back a few soda pops and chat a little bit. But I'm interested what you're offering within that defense innovation space specifically is. What can you bring to the table for your clients?
Inside defense innovation, it can take up to 4 years for a company to get a contract. I think that's insane. In 4 years' time, money runs out. In 4 years' time, technology changes drastically. In 4 years' time, geopolitical climates shift immensely. So 4 years is too long. 2 years is too long. 1 year is too long. So what we do is we address the problem with why it takes so long. And we found that the problem with why it takes so long is because we're not talking the same language. Companies are really, really great at what they do. And they identify a problem and they build a company business model around it, and around a technology, a solution that they've built, and then they try to find a home for it. They're experts in that technology, in that business model they built. Warfighters, we're experts in the pain. And a lot of times we have a significant threshold for that pain. I mean, the majority of it, you look at like combat arms units, combat arms guys they're professionally homeless, basically. So they have to have a high threshold for pain. They have to have a high tolerance for it. So if you're speaking your language about the problem and you're not speaking my language, then we might as well be talking, French and English to each other. We're not going to hear each other. So what we do is we get some war fighters in the room at the same time as this company in the same room at the same time, and we try to address what are the challenges, what are the opportunities, what are the problems, what are the solutions that everyone's facing, and get down to the root language. We work with them together to build that crosswalk of that language to either validate, one, your problem exists, but I don't have a high enough, or my tolerance for it is way high. I don't care to solve that, right? It just is, and I have other issues. And while you can solve this problem for me, that'd be great, but I'm not focused on it. I don't have the care for it right now. So that may come out. Or you have a problem to solve, and we're just not talking the same language. So by the end of it, it'd be great if we had the same language written out that could end in contract language. Contract language where the company is speaking the same way as the warfighter. Oh my God, this is a match made in heaven. Because now we're both in agreement on not just what the problem is and what the solution could be, but what are the delivery milestones. And why do I give a shit about the delivery milestones? Is 6 months important? Is 12 months important? And why? If I, as a technology company or as a solution, I don't care, you're just maybe integrating a new process, you're selling me a process. If I, as a process company, can understand why your timelines matter, I'm going to be more successful and you're going to be happier with the delivery. So that's our model. Let's get the people who need to talk in the same room, make those conversations happen right now. We give them 6 hours to do that. We usually do it on site where we have a skiff, so that if the conversation has to go classified, we can go, okay, stop here, company, you stay out here. We'll go inside, because all of our strategists have clearance, so we can go into that skiff. We can have that conversation around the operational requirements, the capabilities, the missing capabilities, the threats, the opportunities, the enemies, bad actors, and we can transfer that conversation back into an unclassified discussion that we can now take back out and go finish having with the company. That's what we offer with Red Team Biz.
Now let's pivot a little bit to Alaska and your involvement with the university.
Yeah. So I while in the Army, I started the Army's first tactical innovation initiative, which is called SPAR Works. The Air Force has a lot of, they're called spark cells, right? At every Air Force base, they have a spark cell where there are war fighters who are looking at war fighter problems and trying to generate solutions to those to move forward. So that's essentially the same thing we were doing with SPAR Works. Let's find grassroots problems that are defined by the war fighters and design out what a solution might be, and then either A, find a company who's doing it and work with them to help solve a problem, or B, find a company who could design and build what we're working on. And so leaving out of the Army, with that being kind of my last, one of my last assignments, gave me a lot of experience into this entrepreneurial space. Of you have people, every company has people who have entrepreneurial tendencies, and these are tendencies to reject the status quo and demand that their time and their talent be respected, right? And so that assignment gave me that opportunity to really get a lot of experience in that. And so leaving out, I was just scrolling LinkedIn and I saw this job posting at the University of Alaska, and I read through it and I was like, holy shit, that sounds exactly like me. I'm going to reach out, and turns out I knew a couple people that worked within the same center, and everything just worked out just right. And it's been a really rewarding team to be a part of. I get to work with all the entrepreneurs in Alaska, from people who are just starting to do stuff to students that are just researching something and they go I think maybe I could make money doing this, or professors that are going man, I could commercialize this technology that I'm doing research around. Or there's companies that are out existing in the economy right now, and we offer services to help them do things within every single functional area of a business, from customer discovery all the way through investment strategies. So it's been super, super rewarding. Yeah.
It's a unique challenge with Alaska. Sure, all of us Americans know Alaska, and we know it for moose and wilderness, and people eating every part of an animal in a blizzard and living in some kind of shack or something like that. No one really understands Alaska down here, and it might as well be an island.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't touch the border. It takes forever to get there, at least from my understanding. So it's like this redheaded stepchild of a state, and I'm interested how that impacts the economy up there. And I know that's one of your pushes, especially working with the Center for Economic Development.
Yeah. Well, Alaska is really unique. It has it's a lot of things that people don't know is you could fit 3 states the size. You could fit 3 Texas inside of one Alaska. That's how big the state is.
That's crazy.
The state of Alaska has more coastline than all of the lower 48 combined. Everybody's familiar with, we have really long winters. Yeah, the animals, the wildlife, the unique culture that still exists and will exist up here between the native populations and the villages who play a really important role in our state. With that vast spread of land, though, because delivers a lot of disconnectedness. So not only is Alaska sort of an island to the rest of the United States of America, but it has many different land islands within. There's so many remote places in Alaska that aren't connected by road. So your only way in is by plane, or in the winter, maybe you're connected to close locations by snowmobile, ATV, or other type of like off-road capability. And those opportunities, like all this stuff combined, is actually what's led us to our next company that we're looking to buy right now. So we also own AK Sled Medics, where I get to do what I really love. I still get to spin wrenches on snow machines, but we're looking at buying another snowmobile business here in Anchorage that does a substantial amount of business with all these remote areas. I'm super, super pumped up about that. And I'm actually at some point in the future, if this acquisition goes through, at some point in the future, the next year, I'm gonna work to just close everything else down, and I'm just gonna do what I love, which is spin wrenches for people who need it, and I'm super good at the business part of it. I'm super okay with being greasy and getting working with my hands. And so I'm really looking forward to getting to that point in my life where I can just do what I love.
Awesome, man. I love it. That's I share that adventure with you. We're my wife and I, we've started up the holdings company, and it's just kind of sitting there right now while we do the search for this next business is going to be. And we found one recently. It's very fun. It's a family event center. So it's got a bowling alley. It's got 2 movie theaters. It's got an arcade, a little pizzeria with it. And it's just fun. And we've got a couple of young kids, and we just love the thought of being able to step into this kind of mom and pop environment in the maybe travel or leisure, hospitality, entertainment kind of space. And we would just shut everything else down and focus on that. So I'm glad you're finding your niche after after all of this design thinking employed personally.
It's all been working to kind of come together.
This is a problem I've seen every day as I'm looking at these companies. 30 books, and God, if you start looking at some of the traditional boring businesses that everyone talks about, like your laundromats, it's such a cash washing game. And these small business owners don't understand that they're shooting themselves in the foot if they ever want to sell the company. I mean, yeah, great. Look, I don't want to give Uncle Sam a fucking nickel either, but I also want to sell the business at some point. And your exit strategy can't be hide all the cash, because you'll never, these lenders, I've never had so much trouble giving my money away as a down payment to buy a business. And these lenders, of course, the lenders have been doing it a lot longer than I have, but they are scrutinous on the SDE, the cash flow. And some of the best businesses I've found out there that I wanted to buy, I just couldn't do it. Couldn't make a cash flow. I know I could turn the company around. I know I can make it successful, but lenders don't want to hear about projected future earnings. They're only going your last 3 tax returns. It's like shit.
I was looking at a bowling alley up here for sale. It is a cash cow. And they wanted $3 million for, I can't remember how many lanes are in there. It's got a small laundromat. It's got 4 apartments above. It has a bingo hall and it has a bar with dance floor and everything, and they do.
Wow.
They probably make their they cover all their monthly expenses just on 4 Thursday nights at the bar. But they would do so much in cash that they can't show what they have and don't have. So while I think it's definitely worth $3 million, especially with the liquor license that they have. The liquor license alone is that's like a $40,000 purchase up here in Alaska. It's ridiculous.
Wow.
But with the amount of property that's there and the infrastructure, oh man, opportunities for days. But they don't have the books. And it's like, man, you guys really screwed yourself. Like, the best thing you could do is decide you want to sell in 3 years from now, and you need to hire a business manager. And pay them well to come in here and unfuck this and make this healthy. Take 3 years and just put it through rounds of treatment to make it healthy.
Right.
But,
right.
Yeah. It's been disheartening along the way, building a transition plan from the military around failure. Because that's been my entire model, is just embrace the failure, embrace it early. I think that, like, as we complete our military service, there's a lot of maybe unspoken messages that we hear from society about our best contributions are maybe behind us. Thank you for your service was about as far as anybody really knows how to handle, meeting with us and hearing about our experience. So the civilian world, really, you're left to feel like, well, maybe the civilian world just carry on just fine without me. I'm really ready to step into this, more narrow sets of leadership roles later on in my life. You feel a bit of imposter. How am I going to fit in with these people that they've been doing this for 20 years. I've been doing that for 20 years. But the reality is really that so many civilian communities are facing major difficulties, and they desperately need our skills and our experience and the qualities that veterans have to offer. And that is way more than I can spin a wrench or run a motor pool or fire a mortar round, or it goes way, way beyond that. It goes into just like, we have a level of resilience that starts with saying, fuck it, let's go. And our next is just showing up. Like, we do a really great job of that. If you've spent 20 years in the military, so many days you've just shown the fuck up, because not what you had to do, but it was what the team that you were on expected to happen. And just fucking trying, you can't show up and be in front of a team of killers and not fucking try. Which all of that, like, my next step then was, I took it to, like, just be cringy. I hate that word. I think it's a Gen Alpha word, maybe, if it's not Gen Z, but just be cringy. Like, it's going to be bad. You watch these people on TikTok. I've got TikTok videos out there that are just like, oh, I've done things on LinkedIn. I've said things on LinkedIn that I look back on now years later and I go, man, that's just fucking dumb. But the great thing is, and this is what I say, like, just say fuck it and let's go, because if you do it early enough, nobody else will remember it. Nobody else is focused on you. Nobody else is going to remember what Graham said on LinkedIn a year ago.
Yep.
You just start making cookies. So many people get in the positions that they're in life because they have the knowledge. They have enough knowledge. They have enough education. They have enough training. But knowledge is probably one of the greatest sources of power. But first, you have to obtain it. So if you obtain it, you have a lot of power, but it's only potential power.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't know how to put that power into, like, employ it, well, then it's, oh man, there's a proverb. It's like, knowledge is only a rumor until you do it, or knowledge is only a rumor until it's in the muscle. That's what it is. Knowledge is only a rumor until it's in the muscle.
Ooh, I like that.
And that's the problem, like, with so many executive level people. They get the knowledge and they get to where they're going based off of their training, their education, their experience even. But then when they get to that position, they don't know how to employ it. And it fucks up organizations so bad. Yeah.
Well, and let's be real here. I've worked with a ton of imposters who think they are the shit. It's the 80-20 rule. And I'm with you. I feel like I'm a professional generalist. I can kind of wrap my brain around most things within a company, but I'm likely not an expert at any one thing specifically. But it's the people who suffer from imposter syndrome who are your biggest achievers, because they're the ones willing to step out of their comfort zone. And I'll take someone who is out of their comfort zone and maybe not an expert in what they're trying to do. I'll take that person any day over the self-proclaimed expert that can't answer a fucking email, that can't pick up a phone call, that always misses work. There's always some kind of drama in their life, blah, blah, next.
Yeah.
You know, my little 2-word slogan for that kind of person is get fucked, because I don't have time for it. I'm sitting here out of my swim lane trying to make a success out of XYZ problem that is happening here. And if you're not also pitching in, then you need to get out of the way.
Yeah.
So imposter syndrome is one thing, but identifying the true imposter is another. And there are plenty of them out there, I assure you. So the message there to our military brothers and sisters who are maybe scared of the civilian world, don't be scared. Don't be scared at all. You're surrounded by a bunch of other people who don't really know what's going on also. And all you have to do is take a step forward and try your hardest and just be honest and admit your faults, learn from them, and move on. You say you've got a podcast that you do, or you've just been on other podcasts?
Yeah, I got a podcast. I haven't done anything in a while. I've probably 4 months I haven't put anything out.
Okay.
It's called Failed and Forged.
Failed and Forged?
Failed and Forged, yeah.
I like that.
And I also kind of started that because I wanted to get better at this, like just having the conversation on record, right? And also the idea that every time, I feel like I read a book every time I sat down with this guy named Richard Webb. He's a PhD. He retired out of teaching at Penn. I think he taught at Penn, and then he moved up here and was teaching at UA. And the guy is just so damn smart and respectable and so intelligent and experienced, but he's so damn humble. He's humble. Like, what you got behind you? Humble hustle. But he every time I sit down with him and talk with him, it's like I just read a book. And I went, man, how can I do that with more people? A podcast. One of the biggest things that got me about being on social media is looking around at these people who are doing similar things that I want to be doing. Even people who maybe aren't within the same league that I'm playing in. People like Simon Sinek. I fucking hate Simon Sinek. He's such a great author. He wrote some really great books, and he is such a good public speaker. That motherfucker will capture your attention and suck you in. Yep. But he also makes you feel like when you watch so much of that, if you watch too much of that, you really start to lose sight of what you're just trying to do, and you're comparing yourself to what really successful people are doing. And I love reminding people that, like, Simon Sinek stole everything that he has, like an artist. If you've ever read that book, Steal Like an Artist. I mean, that's really what he did. He's a thought follower. He's not a thought leader. He's a thought follower. He is a professional speaker. He is super good at that. But leaders eat last. That's from a fucking Marine Corps doctrine back in the 1940s. I was taught that in the early days of GWAT by a guy named Russ Faulkner. And I didn't realize what he was teaching me. But he would say, "Hey, Graham, come on, let's close down. Like, let's go get something to eat." And 10 more minutes would go by because I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm just wrapping this up." And 10 more minutes, "Graham, come on, wrap it up. Let's go get something to eat." Yeah, I'm almost done. 5 more minutes. And Chief Faulkner would eventually get pissed. Hangry would take over. He'd be like, "Graham, damn it, man. Let's go eat. You're the last one here. I'm not eating until you're eating. I need you to stop working on what you're doing. I'm fucking hungry." And while that is the GWAT version of what our soldiers faced in World War II, that's probably where that comes from, that Marine Corps doctrine. It was a lesson learned back then. And so there's that. And I remember, like, what was the other one he did? Start with Why was his next book. Start with Why. I can't tell you how many times Steve Gruhl, we're in Stackhouse in Iraq, and Steve Gruhl is a Green Beret. He was one of the first guys on ground after September 11th in Afghanistan. And that dude spent some good quality time with me, explaining to me why you start with the purpose of the mission when you're giving a mission brief. That is the entire concept of starting with why. You're convincing a team of warfighters, of killers, to come with you. And that really, like, is understanding the purpose. It's understanding the why. So, like, getting hung up around, I think I'm circling back to comparing yourself to people who are doing the things you're wanting to do. Like, put that shit on hold and just focus on you. Get inspiration, but don't get hung up.
One of the guys I like to hear from is a gentleman named Paul Fioravanti. He's in the consulting space, and he essentially functions as a fractional CEO in some of his offerings. And so he'll go into a troubled company and do turnarounds and stuff like that. But he was on a podcast recently and had this anecdote from a colleague of his where they had just gone into a troubled company, and they were in a room full of the employees, and this consultant was telling everyone, this is the process that we're going to take. This is our path to start changing things. And one of the tenured employees who'd been there for 30 something years stood up and said that thing we've all heard before. "I've been doing this for 30 years. Everyone's heard that. You start hearing the resume. And the guy corrected him. He said, "No, you haven't been doing it for 30 years. What you have are 31-year experiences. And this would be a new one." I really enjoy that take on it, because it's the approach of the reset and that design thinking that you're talking about. You can't cluster this enormity of history into one little lump sum and have that be the narrative of your larger picture. It's your life consists of little tiny steps, little tiny changes in directions and pivots.
Yeah.
So I understand you correctly. That's the approach to both business and perhaps life in general.
Yeah, because life is change. Change is intrinsic to life itself. All right, it's not something that happens to us or around us. Change is what propels life forward. And if you're not adapting, growing, if you're going without even perceptual shifts of people, your own perspectives, and and changing your idea of what possibilities are out there, then life just kind of becomes inert.
Tell me about selling an app. I believe you're involved in something.
Yeah, yeah. I experienced this problem of, it was actually with podcasting, and like trying to find speaking opportunities, and trying to match speakers to speaking opportunities. And I found that, like, there's some good platforms out there. They're okay. They didn't do everything I wanted to do. I won't speak too much on this because I'll try to speak towards the acquisition piece. Um, but I build an app to solve a problem that absolutely exists. And it was actually while I was in Austin with you. It was around another table of people. I was sitting there, and I was bitching and complaining. I was explaining the app that I built and why it has to exist. And I was pretty much like just banging on the competitors about why they suck. Because it was the only reason that I started developing this app, was because the platforms that exist, they work, but they're terrible. And I'm sitting there, I'm just tearing down the competitors. And there's one guy down at the end of the table, and he kind of puts his drink down, and he goes like, "That's my company." And I go, "Oh shit." It's got awkward. But we spent a couple hours that night, and then some time over the following weeks to negotiate an acquisition of that app, to replace what he's doing, which I was really happy with, because I did not want to be running a software company. I was willing to do it because I wanted my problem solved. So, but yeah, with that comes like the NDAs and the refusals, the non-competes, and all that, and closing down. So that's how my acquisition went. But there are a number of other really great like softwares that are out there. Like I can't remember the name of it now. It's like Acquisist or something like that, which is a platform where you can load your it's mostly software apps, software companies. You can load your company up there, and people can make offers to acquire them and stuff like that. There's interesting opportunities out there, but that was my experience. Talking shit in Texas.
Yeah, interesting. You slam the guy, and then he buys your stuff. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's perfect. So in that acquisition space, I'm familiar with a couple of the more standard kind of portals, like your BizBuySell. There's an aggregator out there called With Kumo. With Kumo will take all of those various listings and portals and aggregate them into one little portal.
Yeah.
So this Acquisist, I'm interested in that. Are these off-market types of listings, or are they managed by brokers, or what's kind of the approach there?
The platform essentially is the broker.
So back to Alaska, you had mentioned previously that marketing for small businesses in Alaska is essentially just word of mouth. Do you have specific focus from the perspective of your work with the Center for Economic Development to help influence other means and methods?
Well, I don't know the numbers on it, if word of mouth is the primary way. It has been my observation of some of the organizations I'm working with that word of mouth is heavily relied on. Mm-hmm. I say word of mouth is not a strategy for marketing. Word of mouth means that it's the telephone game. You're relying on the next person to convey what it is that you do and the problem that you solve. And the telephone game doesn't work. We know that from kindergarten, so I would not want to trust my business model with it either. Business is what? Providing something to someone else for a lower price than what the return will give them, right? You're solving a problem. They're willing to pay for it. I'm only willing to pay for it if cost benefit analysis works out. So if that's what business is, then what business sales is sharing a common belief. I have to convince you to believe what I believe. And I don't think that putting that into someone else's hands is the right model at all, because the telephone game breaks down, you know. Yeah, it provides you like no way of data collect. There's no way to collect on people's responses. And if there's one thing about the future that we know, is that it rushes in way too fast, and it's always out of sequence. It doesn't matter what kind of planning you've done. Right? Who said that? Who said planning is everything, but plans are shit? Basically, the President Eisenhower, somebody, can't remember. But yeah, if you've planned correctly, then the future is bound to come. It's definitely going to come out of sequence. It's going to come out of order. It's going to catch you off guard, but no matter, if you've prepared for it, you're ready to accept it. But the only way to prepare for it is to be willing to continuously adapt. And if you're not the one with the observations, if you're not the one collecting the data, then you have nothing to adapt from. You have nothing to inspect, so you have nothing to change. So that's why you cannot leave it to word of mouth. No, it's a tough one. Like, I think like the circular economy is something that we're having to look at because of like our waste streams are changing. We think the circular economy, and we think about how can we continue to use something, right? We all grew up being told reduce, reuse, recycle, the triangle, right? So how do we keep something in circulation, or how do we take something that was and just use it for something different without any like remanufacturing of, or maybe how do we capture it and remanufacture it? But I think the more technology that we get, the more opportunities that we're seeing, and also the more problems that we're going to have. So if you take like EVs, you were in the EV space for a while. So many opportunities are those vehicles going to create for us, but also so many challenges are they going to create.
Right.
You know, a gasoline engine car, it breaks down, you're done with it, you can take it and put it somewhere, drain the fluids, and it's relatively inert. It's not really going to do much else to the environment. You know, there's some steel there, some casts, there's some aluminums and some polymers and some plastics and this and that, and there's some other things. But if you remove the battery and you drain all the fluids, essentially the rubber is the only thing touching the ground, and maybe some runoff from it. It's really low. It's almost inert. With an electric vehicle, you can't do that. You can't park it and let it sit for an extended period of time and let it break down. It introduces a wealth of other problems. And if you remove the battery, a lot of times, like, the battery is the structural component of the vehicle, isn't it?
Yeah, it can be.
It can be
integrated with the chassis. Yeah.
Yeah, so it makes some tough shifts, and that's just one piece of what I think the circular economy is going to have to start to address. Recycling goes way beyond plastic, paper that we conventionally think of, and while those basic things like paper and plastic have their challenges right now, I think new technologies coming about, or emerging technologies, or technologies that have already emerged but haven't been integrated into industries that are using them, if that makes sense. So, for example, AI in the trash pickup realm. I would guarantee we're not using AI to plan routes. The routes are planned. But if you could start to use smart sensors in homes, maybe you could start to reduce, just like what UPS has done with their route plans. They're not set. We don't take the same route every day. We take the route that makes sense, and we're never empty. And so that's what I think AI, they've been doing that with AI. And I think that's what AI will do to the recycling industry. But again, I'm forgetting what your initial question was. But again, I think it's also going to come back to a people first thing. People don't recycle because they aren't part of the experience. You know what I mean? Like once it's gone, it's gone. And to get it gone, oftentimes I have to pay to participate. And I have to pay you to participate so that I do the work. I have to sort it. I have to put it in there. I have to take it out of the street. I have to bring it back. These are a lot of like small tasks, but if you want to be an entrepreneur, you need to understand that that's behavioral economics. People will choose to not do things because it's kind of hard. That's what I'm looking at with the circular economy right now is the human emotion factor of it.
You hit something on AI that I want to explore a little bit too, from your perspective as a futurist and where you see this going. There was mention the other day of a PLM or a personal language model that you're convinced will follow people. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So we call AI artificial intelligence. AI, the concept of artificial intelligence has been around for a super long time. And I don't know the dates on that, but I would imagine it would go back into maybe even the 20s, where we were looking at, can I turn a switch on and off? That was probably as close as we could get to artificial intelligence. Turning the light switch on and off meant that I don't have to physically go out here and make a connection with wrenches and do this every time I want something to turn on. So if we start there, at some point we realized, we could write a software of simple if this then that statements on this really clunky old computer, but it's super cool to us. And where does that happen at? It probably happens in a university. And where do universities get a lot of their funding? They get it out of the government to keep doing things, to explore new things. Where do you get most of your money out of the government? It's going to go DOD. So in order to get more money out of DOD, that's where I think like we should call it artificial intelligence, because it's like replacing what humans can do. And so that's where it got stuck, is we call it artificial intelligence and say that we come up with this idea of it can replace humans because it can think like a human can. We've never had artificial intelligence, I don't think. I don't consider myself an AI expert at all. So people in the comments go and blast me. But I think we have augmented intelligence. And I think that if we started looking at it that way, we would have a far better chance of getting society to buy into it right now. And where does society have to buy into it right now is in the schools. And why are the schools not buying into it? Because the schools see it as cheating. And as long as we're worried about students using it, augmented intelligence, AI, for cheating, as long as we're worried about them using it for cheating, then we're not worried about them learning. And I like the idea of calling it augmented intelligence, because it really is just another being to have a conversation with. That's what we actually have right now in GPT specifically. We have augmented intelligence. We have another person to have a conversation with. Why would I want that? Because I don't want to look stupid. So I don't want to ask these questions to my friends. That's why we Google shit. But now I can get rounded out answers. So like we need to take this shift and stop calling it artificial intelligence, because we don't have it. We don't even understand our own human existence and why do we fall in love? You can't say that. You can't pin that down. This is the process of how we fall in love. These are the factors, and they happen in this order, and this is why. You can't, because too much goes into that. From your upbringing was different than my upbringing, my experience. Like you said, you don't have 30 years of experience. You have 31-year experiences.
Mhm.
But in terms of a lot of this, we don't even have 1 year experiences. We have like 1 second experiences, and that's what shapes us. So I don't think we'll ever have a fully artificial intelligent, uh, fully artificially intelligent model. Um, I think AI can't make assumptions right now, um, and that could be bad news for whatever topic you're asking it. Right? It can only pull facts. Um, and really, like, an AI is not even factual unless you ask it for facts.
Mhm.
It's going to give you pretty vanilla answers for what I can find on the internet. Um, and so I'd almost say, like, if we're looking at GPT, because that's the hotness right now for the past year, we've been talking AI. Everybody's talking about GPT. That's what they're actually saying when they say AI. I would say that this is what intelligence isn't. So how do we get further along in adopting this is in PLMs, is what you asked. It's personal language models. Large language models are trained by the entirety of the internet, for kind of a general purpose, versus personal language models, which there's some good companies doing this stuff, are air gapped. So they're trained, but then they're pulled away from the internet, to an extent. So they only have access to what you know, what you tell it, or to what information you provided. So I think a personal language model in terms of the school system, you'll get issued it, like your kids get issued a Chromebook right now. And I'm not sure if that's going to be on a device or what type of device that might look like. But it will have a language model on it that's personal to you. It's basically a baby. And you're in first grade, you drop in all the first grade text, and now it has that. And then from there on, it's becoming your companion. It's learning with you, from you. It's participating in the conversations in the classroom. It's participating in your conversations with your peers. And you stick with that until you graduate out and your PLM then follows you. So I think in probably 10 years' time, our kids will sit down in job interviews, or maybe not even go to a job interview. You may just connect your PLM to their system, and it would interview your PLM and decide whether or not you're a right fit for the position that's available. And I don't think that we're 10 years off from that.
Man, this is where it gets into the creepy factor, in my opinion. How far removed is this from becoming your avatar, that's uploaded, or it's uploading your consciousness into some kind of microchip and putting a human looking robot, and now you live forever as that, call it augmented consciousness. Uh,
Yeah.
I can see why people get a little freaked out by this kind of stuff, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. And the thing that will stop every development on anything will be adoption. So how many people are going to get freaked out by it and not adopt it? And if there's not enough, then the company will pivot and do something that the people are asking for, or they'll collapse. So I think we'll see it right now. We'll see it with that little AI pen that was really popular about a month ago on social media. I don't remember what it was called.
I didn't see it.
But yeah, I think we'll see how people feel about that. About having a little pen with AI in it that has a forward-facing camera. I think that'll also lead to a lot of problems with using people's likeness and stuff. So we're seeing lawsuits around, oh, I published this TikTok video of me and my friend, and we're not friends anymore, and now he sues me because I made so much money off of that video, and or he made so much money off that video, and it was because I was in it. We're seeing lawsuits like that happen now. So just the same as it's illegal to record a conversation over the phone without both parties knowing, because that's wiretapping, we're going to arrive at a place where it becomes illegal to film. I think we will arrive at a place where it becomes illegal to capture someone's likeness. without their permission.
So what was this thing? It's like a little camera that follows you around, or what is it?
Yeah, it's a little like a pin. It's a device. It's about the size of like an iPod Shuffle, and it fits on the outside of your clothing, and then on the inside of your clothing is the battery pack, and it has a magnet. It's magnetized, and so you stick it, on the magnet on the inside of your shirt and the device on the outside. It has a forward-facing camera. It's kind of always listening, say in air quotes, but you can talk to it and essentially be like, "Hey Siri, what type of car is that?" And that's a Porsche 911, 2009. How many horsepower does that car have? And just because it has the forward-facing camera, it's collecting the environment around you. It can do that. It's hard math, really hard statistics, but they're doing it.
Here it is, called the Humane AI Pen.
Yes, humane. That's right.
Yeah, there it is. Is the Humane AI Pen real? But wearability aside, emerging tech like this is yet another hurdle: culture. I've seen the AI Pen compared to Star Trek's communicator badges, but there's a gap between that and what Humane's making. It's a fictional device in a fictional universe that has established norms for how these devices are used. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. There's so much technology now. We're seeing like Apple Vision Pro, right? And the things that it can do, and then we're not far off from, just like you can use your iPhone right now and the LiDAR scan. You can use it to LiDAR scan an object and create a 3D model of any object right now. You have to do that. You have to press the buttons and do that. How far are we from, the technology just that being a feature? It scans everything in my room. So I put on my headset in my friend's office, and it happens to scan his guitar, and now I can go home later in my headset and not even have a guitar, and I can start trying to learn how to play without a guitar.
Right.
And without having to buy the model, like the computer software, you'll be able to just build whatever you want just by asking for it.
And it's all building up on itself too. Like the
Mhm.
smarter that systems become, they invest that intelligence back into the product development cycle, and it's accelerating at an exponential pace. It's unreal. The stuff, man.
Yeah, and that's like the entrepreneurial note about that is, will people reject it or will they adopt it? And what pieces of it will they reject and what pieces will they adopt? Because it really comes back to, for companies, for anybody who's doing business for themselves, needs to acknowledge the fact that cost benefit analysis doesn't actually exist. Cost benefit analysis, if it does exist, it's done at the individual level. And I think that what we ought to probably call it is comfort-based analysis, because the adoption of things comes down to how comfortable am I? Is my pain level high enough to accept this as a reality, or is my pain threshold low enough to want to try something new? Comfort-based analysis kind of suggests that value is intrinsic to the individual. Cost-based analysis suggests that value is monetary, and it's really not. We're exchanging money, but I'm exchanging money to remove a pain. That's comfort.
Right. Well, Graham, I appreciate you joining today. How can people find you?
LinkedIn is probably the best, man. LinkedIn. I'm on TikTok. I've got like 30-some thousand followers on there. So if you message me on there or follow me on there, I'll get back to you. That's probably a different personality of middle fingers and It's definitely not like the professional hat. But LinkedIn is great.
Perfect. I appreciate your time. Thanks for stopping by. Let's do this again sometime.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me.
Of course, man. All right. Take care. This episode is brought to you by Crash Test Designs, a company dedicated to teaching teams and organizations to embrace change through the application of human-centered design principles and agile project management frameworks. Crash Test Designs are registered Scrum trainers that offer world-class agile project management training designed to create practicing Scrum masters and product owners. Through their instruction, students are prepared to lead Scrum teams immediately. Use the coupon code BLUESKY at checkout for 10% off your next training. For course dates and information on additional offerings, visit www.crashtestdesigns.com. This episode of Blue Sky is sponsored by The Vanguard, the definitive online community for defense and aerospace leaders and innovators to grow, communicate, and build capacity in our defense industrial base. With curated discussion forums, exclusive networking, a desktop and mobile app, and unique access to working sessions and AMAs with top leaders in the defense and aerospace industries, The Vanguard is the next generation career accelerator for those looking to break into or make an impact on the defense and aerospace sectors. Join the ranks of The Vanguard today with a free trial and enter coupon code Blue Sky, that's one word, Blue Sky, at the link in this posting. This episode of Blue Sky is sponsored by Parabolic. Parabolic is dedicated to growing wealth together through business and organizational development services designed by conducting a rigorous workshop with your business leaders. Are you a small to medium-sized business needing to grow into new markets? Or have you grown too rapidly and now need to unwind some of the damage? There is no cookie-cutter template to solve your unique issues. There is no step-by-step proprietary method these other consultants claim for high fees. Parabolic focuses specifically on your unique challenges in a one-on-one setting to dive deeply into the issues, to develop a list of action items and next steps. And if we can help with those steps, we'll talk about it. No strings, no BS. Visit parabolic-strategy.com today to contact us. PARABOLIC-strategy.com. Let's go vertical.